This is me, but this is also me in New York City, where I was forced to assist with robbing a bank. And to understand how I ended up here, we need to talk about a game that's all about robbing banks and completing stealthy and action-packed heists called Payday 3. Now, I've never played Payday 3 before, or any Payday game for that matter, but when the creators of the game invited me out to New York City to give it a try, I obviously said yes. I mean, heading out to get to play a brand new video game early, that was my 13-year-old dream, and admittedly is still my current 25-year-old dream. So I hopped on a plane, went out to New York City, met some super cool folks, and headed to the bank-themed venue to go and see what was in store for us. But after enjoying some champagne and socializing around, the bank was robbed by the very members of the Payday games themselves, to my surprise. Well, sort of. I was kind of jokingly saying to some of the other folks there, like, hey, wouldn't it be crazy if they staged a bank robbery? But I digress. What was genuinely to my surprise was how top-notch the performance was. I mean, their acting and their practiced voice lines and even the details of the outfits and the masks, it was all perfection. And if it was any indication of the quality of the early version of Payday 3 that I was about to play, then I was in for something good. And let me tell you, my very first Payday experience did not disappoint. At the early demo event, we were given access to 2 of the missions, one of which had us robbing a more traditional bank, whereas the other, that you're watching in this video, had us stealing high-tech devices from a highly protected warehouse. I was playing with a Warzone content creator that I met at the event named TCAT, and right off the bat, we were dropped into the stealth phase of the 99 boxes heist. Every heist begins with a stealth phase, where you can roam the premises of the map to do things like hack cameras, find objectives, and just generally case the place out. After you're done with your stealth run, or once you get caught hanging out in an area that you aren't really supposed to be in, it's time to mask up. Now, if you mask up willingly, the game still technically has you in stealth mode, where the guards and police are still unaware of your presence. During this time, you can sneak around like a 007 agent to pick off some of the security guards one by one as you continue to explore the zone and complete objectives to finish the heist. Once you get caught making too much noise or get sighted by an enemy though, you'll enter what I like to call the go loud phase of the mission. This is exactly what it sounds like, as the go loud phase effectively has you in an all-out battle as you try to complete the heist, all while waves and waves of increasingly difficult enemies come to try and stop you. And the dichotomy between the stealth and go loud portions of each mission really grew on me throughout our play session, so much so that I would literally replay missions in full just so I could play the mission in a completely different style than I did previously. So, for example, if I prioritized stealth for as long as humanly possible in my previous run, I would mask up the second I spawned in and run in guns blazing on my next playthrough. And on subsequent runs, I would begin to merge these 2 playstyles together even more, which was super refreshing for someone like myself who absolutely adores both the covert stealth environment and the loud and proud playstyles. And it's pretty rare to see a game that combines both of these together in the very same missions every single time. Another thing that grew on me was the various objective types that each heist had. Don't get me wrong, I love being in an all-out bullet tornado brawl against hundreds of enemies, but as a PvE Destiny main, I also love mechanics. They just itch some part of my brain that feels way too right. And between the 2 different missions we played, the game did a really great job of constantly throwing out unique and fresh mechanics that had to be completed to progress missions, all while you're carrying out the fight of your life against endless waves of opposition. For example, some mechanics had us defend a burning chunk of thermite to open up a crate, whilst others had us scavenging zip lines and scaling up to higher ground to deploy them and reach the next zone of the mission. 2 of my favorite mechanics that I experienced in just the 2 missions we played through though were the position calibrating and timed delivery mechanics in the 99 boxes heist. In this heist, the goal was to retrieve high-tech components that would degrade in quality unless refrigerated. As such, these components were stored in refrigerated crates. Although, considering we were in a shipping yard containing hundreds of crates, we didn't know which crate contained the high-tech components, so the heist had us stand inside of various objective markers around the map to do some sort of radio location calibration to determine which crate contained the high-tech components, which had an interesting dynamic to it because the game would throw enemies at you while you had to remain in these calibration circles, forcing you to fight out of cover or to coordinate with your teammates to have them set up a perimeter around you and defend you as you captured. As for mechanic number 2, once we located the components and stole them from their refrigerated vessel, we were on a limited amount of time to deliver them to the refrigerated getaway truck before they degraded in quality. The result was that as a full unit, we basically had to sprint to the getaway truck as fast as humanly possible while gunning through all of the enemies, which occurred towards the end of the mission, by the way, meaning that the toughest enemies of the mission had all begun rolling in at this point. Speaking of which, this game had a lot of different enemy types just in these 2 missions that resulted in a really enjoyable and interesting combat experience. The missions usually begin with pretty non-threatening security guards that have nothing but a sidearm pistol and maybe like some handcuffs, but once you go loud and begin to work your way through the mission, the police that get called have time to begin bringing in more backup and increasingly more formidable enemies at that. The waves of backup would begin with your run-of-the-mill ground units that would carry something like just a typical rifle, but as we made our way through the missions, we would begin to fight riot shield guards that basically forced you to work with your teammates to get a flank on their exposed side, or to use pieces of utility like grenades or deployable turrets to take them out. There were also enemies that roamed around with stun guns, enemy snipers on the rooftops, and probably my favorite, this sort of like martial arts hand-to-hand combat style enemy that would literally sprint up to you and drop kick you in the face. And like I said, my favorite part of the enemy diversity offered in this game is how much it promotes team play. In some video games, it feels like the enemies just spawn in to die, offering very little resistance or complexity, but in Payday, the combat is crafted in a way that working together with your friends feels extremely rewarding and integral to actually completing the heists. And I've always been a sucker for a game that poses combat challenges that are interesting enough that I actually have to communicate with my buddies in adrenaline-pumping moments that feel super rewarding when we make it out on the other side. But what makes those adrenaline-pumping moments replayable time and time again is the weapon variety that this game offers. There are so many different types of weapons and equipment options in Payday 3 that can make for thousands of different loadouts so that you can approach every mission in a unique way of your choosing. And your loadout choice really matters when it comes to your playstyle in these heists, as ammo can be pretty scarce as compared to other games, forcing you to be quite intentional with your aim and when to use which components of your arsenal. It's a game where every loadout decision feels like it actually matters, as opposed to a situation where you customize your loadout with 6 different options between weapons and equipment, but only end up using your primary weapon and maybe a grenade here or there. This whole idea that your loadout choices are extremely important is coupled beautifully with all of the class skill trees that further enable and incentivize various playstyles, allowing you to prioritize things like tactical utility, ammo surplus, extra healing, faster movement speed, bonus damage, durability, long-range buffs, demolitions, and so much more. Put this all together, and you're left with a game that you can spend countless hours on, all for just $40. So, as a player who has never touched a Payday game before in any capacity, I am so happy and thankful that the folks behind Payday 3 flew me out to NYC to try the game out for my very first time. It's one that I can genuinely say I am excited to play on release with my brothers and friends while we crush a few drinks during a Saturday night gaming session that lasts until the sun comes up. As a gamer that spends 40 hours a week at work in conjunction with a whole lot of time streaming and making YouTube videos, I honestly don't have that much time at all to play games for fun. So when I see a game like Payday that has me eager to cancel some weekend plans so I can play a few heists, you know they made something special. Thanks to the Payday team for having me out. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a great day.